Hey everyone. Get cozy, settle into a comfy position, and let these calming tales whisk you away to a peaceful night's sleep. Drop a comment below on what time and from where you are watching this video and share your own late-night ritual that helps you drift off. The sun hung low over the cracked plains of New Austin, a blood-red orb bleeding into the horizon. Dust swirled in lazy spirals, kicked up by the hooves of a lone horse trudging along a rutted trail. Elias Kane, slouched in the saddle, squinted against the glare. His hat, weathered and stained, tilted low over eyes that had seen too much blood, too much betrayal. The weight of his revolver pressed against his hip, a constant reminder of the life he'd chosen. Or the life that had chosen him. "Easy, girl," he muttered to his mare Sadie as she snorted at a rattlesnake skittering across the path. The horse's ears flicked, but she kept her pace steady. Elias patted her neck, his calloused fingers brushing her matted mane. They'd been together 6 years, through ambushes and long nights under starless skies. She was the only thing he trusted anymore. The town of Tumbleweed loomed ahead, a skeleton of rotting wood and broken dreams. Once a bustling hub for traders and outlaws alike, it was now a ghost town, claimed by the desert and the ghosts of men like Elias. He'd heard whispers of a job here, a big one. A train carrying payroll for the Blackwater Mining Company was due to pass through in 3 days. The kind of score that could set a man up for life. Or get him killed. Elias dismounted outside the saloon, tying Sadie to a post that looked ready to collapse. The street was empty, save for a vulture perched on a sagging roof, its beady eyes tracking him. He pushed through the saloon's swinging doors, the creak echoing in the near-empty room. A lone bartender polished a glass and 2 men sat at a corner table, their voices low, their eyes darting to Elias as he entered. "Whiskey," Elias said, tossing a coin onto the bar. The bartender, a wiry man with a scar running from ear to chin, poured without a word. Elias took the glass, the burn of the liquor cutting through the dust in his throat. He leaned against the bar, listening to the men in the corner. "Train's guarded heavy," one said, his voice rough as gravel. "Pinkerton's maybe. But the take's worth it." "Worth dying for?" the other asked, his tone skeptical. Elias's grip tightened on the glass. Pinkerton's. The name alone was enough to make any outlaw's blood run cold. He'd crossed paths with them before. Ruthless, relentless, and paid to hunt men like him. But the payroll, that was a fortune. Enough to leave this life behind, maybe start fresh somewhere far from the law's reach. He drained the whiskey and set the glass down. "Heard you talkin' 'bout a train," he said loud enough for the men to hear. They froze, hands inching toward their holsters. Elias kept his posture loose, but his fingers hovered near his revolver. "I'm looking for work. Name's Elias Kane." The men exchanged a glance. The older one, with a graying beard and a missing ear, leaned forward. "You that Kane? The one what hit the bank in Armadillo?" Elias gave a slight nod. "Might be." The man chuckled low and dry. "Name's Amos. This here's Cal. We're short a man for a job. You in?" Elias studied them. Amos's eyes were hard, calculating. Cal, younger and twitchy, looked like he'd bolt at the first sign of trouble. Not ideal, but Elias had worked with worse. "What's the split?" he asked. "Even 3 ways, Amos said. "After we pay the planner." "Planner?" "Woman named Lila. She's got the details, train schedule, guard numbers, all of it. Smart as a whip, but she don't ride. You in or not?" Elias considered. A woman planner was unusual but not unheard of. If her information was good, it could make the difference between a clean job and a noose. "I'm in," he said finally. "Where's this Lila?" Amos grinned, showing yellowed teeth. "She'll find you. Meet us at the old windmill outside town at dawn. Don't be late." The windmill's blades creaked in the pre-dawn chill, a mournful sound that carried across the empty plain. Elias arrived early, Sadie's hooves stirring the dust as he dismounted. Amos and Cal were already there, their horses tethered to a gnarled tree. A third figure stood apart, cloaked in black, her face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Lila, Elias presumed. "You're Kane," she said, her voice low and steady, no hint of question. She stepped forward, and the first rays of sunlight caught her face. Sharp cheekbones, green eyes that pierced like a hawk's, and a scar across her left brow. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 30, but her presence carried the weight of someone who'd lived a lifetime in half that. "That's me," Elias said, tipping his hat. You Lila? She nodded, her gaze sizing him up. Amos says you're good. Says you hit the Armadillo Bank clean. That true? Clean enough, Elias replied. Got out alive, didn't I? Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. Alive's a start. This job ain't a bank. Train's got 6 guards, maybe more. Pinkertons if Amos's man is right. You ever tangled with them? Once or twice, Elias said, his tone guarded. They bleed like anyone else. Lila's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press. Instead, she pulled a rolled-up map from her coat and spread it on a crate. Train leaves Blackwater at noon, 3 days from now. Stops at McFarland's ranch for water, then cuts through tall trees. We hit it here. She tapped a spot on the map, a narrow pass. Cliffs on one side, river on the other. No room for them to maneuver. Elias studied the map. It was a good spot, defensible with clear lines of sight. What's the catch? Catch is the dynamite, Lila said. Train's got a safe. Big one. We need to blow it open, but too much and we lose the payload. Too little and we're stuck. Cal shifted nervously. Dynamite's risky. What if it goes wrong? Then we're dead, Lila said flatly. Or worse, caught. You got a problem with that, Cal? You can walk away now. Cal's mouth opened, then closed. He looked to Amos, who just shrugged. Elias hid a smirk. Lila wasn't just the planner, she was the one running this show. Any more questions? Lila asked, rolling up the map. Elias raised a hand. Yeah. Why you doing this? You ain't riding with us, so what's your stake? Her eyes met his, unyielding. Same as yours, Kane. Freedom. Now get some rest. We move tomorrow night. The campfire crackled, casting flickering shadows across the camp they'd set up a mile from Tumbleweed. Elias sat apart, cleaning his revolver, the rhythmic click of metal soothing his nerves. Amos snored loudly, sprawled on a bedroll, while Cal paced, muttering to himself. Lila sat by the fire, her gaze distant, a journal open in her lap. Elias watched her, curious. She hadn't said much since the windmill, but there was something about her, something that didn't fit the usual outlaw mold. The way she moved, the way she spoke, hinted at a life before this one. He'd seen it before in men running from their pasts. Women too, though they were rarer. You don't trust me, she said suddenly, not looking up from her journal. Elias paused, mid-wipe of his gun barrel. Don't trust anyone, he said. Nothing personal. She closed the journal, her fingers lingering on the leather cover. Fair enough. But you're wondering why I'm here. Why I'm planning a job I won't ride for. Crossed my mind, Elias admitted. You don't strike me as the type to sit back and let others take the risks. She leaned forward, the firelight dancing in her eyes. I used to ride. Used to be the best damn shot in Valentine. But things change. People change. Now I plan and I let men like you pull the trigger. What changed? Elias asked, his voice low. For a moment she didn't answer. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a locket, its silver surface tarnished but gleaming in the firelight. She opened it, revealing a faded photograph of a young girl, no older than 10, with Lila's eyes. Her name was Sarah, Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. My daughter. Pinkertons took her from me. Not directly, but they might as well have. I plan jobs like this to hurt them. To take what they protect. Elias's chest tightened. He'd lost people too. His brother, gunned down in a botched robbery, his mother, taken by fever years before. Loss was the currency of this life. I'm sorry, he said, meaning it. Lila snapped the locket shut. Don't be. Just don't mess this up, Kane. We get that payroll, we hit the Pinkertons where it hurts. He nodded, returning to his revolver. But as he worked, a flicker of doubt crept in. Lila's story rang true, but there was something she wasn't saying. Something in her eyes, a secret buried deep. He'd seen that look before in men who'd double-crossed him. He pushed the thought aside. For now he needed her plan. For now he'd play along. The next night they rode hard toward the pass, the moon a thin crescent above. Elias's blood thrummed with the familiar anticipation of a job. He'd done dozens of heists, banks, stagecoaches, even a riverboat once, but trains were different. Trains moved. Trains fought back. Amos took point, his horse kicking up clouds of dust. Cal rode beside him, his hands trembling on the reins. Elias brought up the rear, his eyes scanning the dark for movement. Lila had stayed behind, her map and instructions burned into his mind. Stick to the plan, she'd said. No heroics. The pass came into view, a narrow cut between towering cliffs. The river glinted to their left, its surface black and restless. Elias dismounted, tethering Sadie to a scrubby tree. Amos and Cal did the same, their faces pale in the moonlight. We set the charges here, Amos said, pointing to a cluster of boulders near the tracks. Train hits this spot, we blow the line. Stops it dead. Elias nodded, pulling a bundle of dynamite from his saddlebag. He'd handled explosives before but never liked it. Too unpredictable. Too much like tempting fate. He knelt, planting the sticks carefully, while Cal kept watch and Amos strung the fuse. Think this'll work? Cal asked, his voice high with nerves. It'll work, Elias said, though he wasn't sure. Lila's plan was solid, but plans had a way of unraveling when bullets started flying. They finished setting the charges and took cover behind the boulders. The distant rumble of the train echoed through the pass, growing louder with each second. Elias's heart pounded, his hand resting on his revolver. This was it. The moment where everything could go right, or very, very wrong. The train rounded the bend, its headlamp cutting through the dark like a blade. Elias lit the fuse, the spark racing toward the dynamite. Get ready, he hissed to Amos and Cal. The explosion was deafening, a roar that shook the ground and sent rocks tumbling. The train screeched, metal grinding against metal as it derailed, cars lurching off the tracks. Shouts rang out from the guards, followed by the crack of gunfire. Elias moved first, vaulting over the boulder with his revolver drawn. 2 guards stood on the train's platform, rifles raised. He fired twice, dropping them before they could aim. Amos and Cal followed, their shots wild but effective. The guards returned fire, bullets kicking up dirt around them. Safe's in the 3rd car. Amos shouted, ducking behind a crate. Cover me. Elias nodded, firing at a guard perched on the train's roof. The man fell, clutching his chest. Cal screamed, clutching his arm where a bullet had grazed him. I'm hit, he wailed. Stay down. Elias snapped, dragging him behind cover. The kid was useless, but he wasn't about to let him die. Not yet. Amos reached the 3rd car, prying open the door with a crowbar. Inside, the safe gleamed, a massive iron box bolted to the floor. Elias joined him, reloading as bullets pinged off the train's metal sides. You got the dynamite? He asked. Amos nodded, pulling a stick from his coat. Lila said 1 stick, no more. Elias glanced at the safe, then at the chaos outside. The guards were regrouping, their shouts growing louder. Do it fast, he said. Amos lit the fuse and dove for cover. The explosion rocked the car, smoke and dust filling the air. When it cleared, the safe's door hung open, stacks of cash spilling onto the floor. Elias's breath caught. It was more than he'd expected, more than he'd ever seen. Grab it! Amos yelled, stuffing bills into a sack. Elias joined him, his hands moving fast, but a cold prickle ran down his spine. Something was wrong. The guards had gone quiet. Too quiet. He turned just as a shadow moved at the car's door. A man in a long coat, a Pinkerton badge glinting on his chest, stepped inside, a shotgun leveled at them. Drop the money, he said, his voice calm but deadly, or you're dead men. Elias froze, his hand hovering over his revolver. The Pinkerton's eyes were cold, unyielding like a wolf's. Amos dropped the sack, raising his hands, but Elias saw the glint of defiance in his eyes. Cal whimpered behind them, clutching his bleeding arm. Easy now, Elias said, his voice steady. We don't want trouble. The Pinkerton smirked. You're knee-deep in trouble, friend. Drop the gun. Elias weighed his options. He could draw, maybe take the Pinkerton down, but not before the shotgun turned him into a bloody mess. He let his revolver fall, raising his hands. All right. You got us. The Pinkerton stepped forward, kicking the revolver away. Smart move. Now where's the woman? Lila? Elias's blood ran cold. How did he know her name? He glanced at Amos, whose face had gone pale. Cal's eyes darted between them, wide with panic. What's he talking about? Cal whispered. Shut up, Amos hissed, but his voice shook. The Pinkerton's gaze locked on Elias. You didn't know, did you? Lila's been playing you. She's one of ours. Been feeding us information for months. This job? A trap to catch scum like you. Elias's mind raced. Lila, a Pinkerton? It didn't add up. Her story about her daughter, the locket, the hate in her eyes, it felt real. But the Pinkerton's confidence was unshakable. And then there was that look she'd given him, the one that screamed secrets. "You're lying," Elias said, but doubt gnawed at him. "Am I?" The Pinkerton tilted his head. "Ask yourself, Kane. Why's she sitting this one out? Why's she so keen on this train? She knew we'd be here. Knew we'd take you down." Amos cursed under his breath. "That damn woman. I trusted her." Elias's jaw tightened. If Lila had betrayed them, they were as good as dead. But something didn't sit right. The Pinkerton was too smug, too quick to talk. Men like that were either stupid or hiding something. And Pinkertons weren't stupid. "Cal," Elias said quietly, not taking his eyes off the Pinkerton. "You still got that knife in your boot?" Cal's eyes widened, but he nodded slightly. The Pinkerton didn't notice, too busy gloating. Elias took a slow step forward, hands still raised. "All right," he said. "You win. Take us in." The Pinkerton's grin widened. "Smart man. Now." Cal moved fast, yanking the knife from his boot and hurling it. The blade caught the Pinkerton in the shoulder, not deep, but enough to make him stagger. Elias dove for his revolver, rolling as the shotgun roared, splintering the car's wall. He fired, catching the Pinkerton in the chest. The man collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. "Move!" Elias shouted, grabbing the sack of cash. Amos and Cal scrambled after him, bullets whizzing past as more guards closed in. They leapt from the train, sprinting for their horses. Sadie whinnied as Elias swung into the saddle, the sack slung over his shoulder. They rode hard, the sound of pursuit fading into the night. But Elias's mind wasn't on the guards or the money. It was on Lila. If she was a Pinkerton, she'd played them all for fools. But if she wasn't, then who was she? And why had the Pinkerton known her name? They reached the camp at dawn, exhausted and battered. Cal's arm was a mess, blood soaking his sleeve, but he'd live. Amos was silent, his face a mask of rage. Elias dismounted, tossing the sack onto the ground. The weight of it felt wrong now, tainted by betrayal. Lila was waiting, sitting by a cold fire pit, her hat pulled low. She stood as they approached, her eyes scanning them. "You got it," she said, nodding at the sack. "Good." Elias drew his revolver, leveling it at her. "Start talking," he said. "Pinkerton at the train knew your name. Said you set us up." Lila didn't flinch. Her eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "You believe him?" "Don't matter what I believe," Elias said. "Matters what's true. You a Pinkerton, Lila?" Amos stepped forward, his hand on his gun. "Answer him, damn it." Lila's gaze flicked to Amos, then back to Elias. "I'm no Pinkerton," she said. "But I knew they'd be there. Had to. They've been hunting me since Valentine. Since they took my Sarah." "Then why'd he know your name?" Elias pressed. "Because I've been stealing from them for years," she said, her voice hard. "Not just money, secrets, plans, names. I feed their enemies, men like you, to hurt them. That Pinkerton? He was one of mine once. Turned on me when he saw a bigger payday." Elias's grip on the revolver wavered. Her story fit, but trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Prove it," he said. Lila reached into her coat, slow and deliberate, and pulled out a stack of papers. "Letters," she said, tossing them at his feet. "From Pinkertons to their bosses. Names, dates, places. I've been planning this job for months, Kane. Not to betray you, to destroy them." Elias knelt, picking up a letter. The seal was real, the writing official. Orders to guard the train, signed by a Pinkerton captain. He looked up at her, his mind torn. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you wouldn't have trusted me," she said. "And I needed you to pull this off." Amos spat. "We almost died for your vendetta." "You almost died for money," Lila shot back. "Same as always. But this time you hit them where it hurts. That payroll was meant for their informants. Without it, their network's crippled." Elias lowered his gun, but the doubt lingered. "And what now? You take your cut and disappear?" Lila's eyes softened just for a moment. "I don't care about the money. Take it. Split it. All I want is to keep fighting. For Sarah." Cal, silent until now, spoke up. "What if she's lying?" Elias looked at Lila, searching her face. He'd spent years reading men, knowing when they were bluffing. Lila wasn't. Or if she was the best damn liar he'd ever met. She ain't, he said finally. But we're done here. Take your share, Lila. We're square. She nodded, picking up a small stack of bills from the sack. You're a good man, Kane. Don't let this life take that from you. She mounted her horse and rode off, disappearing into the dawn. Elias watched her go, the weight of the revolver heavy in his hand. The money was theirs, but the victory felt hollow. He'd trusted her and she'd used him. Not for betrayal maybe, but for her own war. And in this life that was just as dangerous. The trio split the money under the morning sun, the desert stretching endless around them. Amos took his share with a grunt, already talking about heading to St. Denis for a fresh start. Cal, his arm bandaged, muttered about buying a ranch, though Elias doubted he'd last a month without trouble finding him. Elias himself took the smallest cut. Money didn't mean much when you had nowhere to go. He rode north, Sadie's steady gait carrying him toward the mountains. The payroll job had been a success, but it left a bitter taste. Lila's words echoed in his mind, "You're a good man, Kane. Don't let this life take that from you." He wasn't sure he believed her. Good men didn't last long in the West. Days later he stopped at a creek, letting Sadie drink while he sat on a rock, staring at the water. The locket he'd found in the Pinkerton's coat gleamed in his hand. Not Lila's, but another, with a different girl's face inside. Another loss, another story cut short. He wondered who she was, who the Pinkerton had been before he'd chosen this path. A rustle in the bushes snapped him out of his thoughts. He drew his revolver, but it was only a deer, bounding away through the trees. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. The West was like that, always keeping you on edge, never letting you rest. As he mounted Sadie and rode on, Elias made a decision. He'd keep moving, keep running, but not forever. Somewhere, there was a place where a man could lay down his gun and live without looking over his shoulder. Maybe he'd find it. Maybe he wouldn't. But for now the trail stretched ahead and that was enough. As he mounted Sadie and rode on, Elias made a decision. He'd keep moving, keep running, but not forever. Somewhere, there was a place where a man could lay down his gun and live without looking over his shoulder. Maybe he'd find it. Maybe he wouldn't. But for now the trail stretched ahead and that was enough. The days blurred into weeks as Elias rode north, through the rolling hills of the Grizzlies, where the air grew sharp and the pines stood tall against the sky. The weight of the payroll money in his saddlebag felt heavier with each mile, a burden he couldn't shake. He'd seen what money did to men, turned brothers into enemies, made honest folk into liars. He didn't want it, not really, but it was his ticket out. Or so he told himself. He made camp one evening in a clearing, the stars bright above, a cold wind rustling the trees. Sadie grazed nearby, her breath steaming in the chill. Elias built a small fire, the crackle of wood a comfort against the silence. As he boiled coffee, his thoughts drifted to Lila. Her face, her voice, the fire in her eyes when she spoke of her daughter. He wanted to believe her story, wanted to believe she was fighting for something bigger than herself. But doubt lingered, a shadow that wouldn't fade. A twig snapped and Elias's hand flew to his revolver. He scanned the darkness, his heart steady but alert. "Who's there?" he called, his voice cutting through the night. A figure stepped into the firelight, hands raised. It was a boy, no older than 16, with a mop of dirty blonde hair and clothes patched beyond repair. His eyes were wide, nervous, but there was a spark of defiance in them. "Don't shoot, mister," he said. "I ain't here to cause trouble." Elias kept the revolver trained on him. "Step closer. Slow." The boy obeyed, his boots scuffing the dirt. "Name's Tommy," he said. "Saw your fire. Been tracking you since Tumbleweed." Elias's grip tightened. "Tracking me? Why?" Tommy hesitated, then reached into his pocket. Elias cocked the hammer, but the boy only pulled out a crumpled letter. "This," he said, holding it out. "Lila gave it to me. Said to find you." Elias's blood ran cold. He snatched the letter, keeping the gun on Tommy. The envelope was plain, sealed with wax, and bore his name in Lila's sharp handwriting. He tore it open, his eyes scanning the words. "Elias, if you're reading this, you made it out of the pass. Good. I knew you would. The money's yours, but it's not the end. The Pinkertons are coming for you, not just for the payroll, but for what you know. I wasn't lying about Sarah, but I wasn't honest about everything. Meet me in Coulter in the old church 1 week from now. I'll explain. Don't trust anyone else. Burn this, Lila." Elias read it twice, his jaw tight. He tossed the letter into the fire, watching it curl and blacken. "What's your part in this, kid?" he asked Tommy. The boy shrugged, his bravado faltering. "Lila helped me once. Got me out of a bad spot in Valentine. Said I owed her. Told me to find you, give you that letter, and—" He trailed off, looking away. "And what?" Elias pressed. Tommy swallowed. "And make sure you get to Coulter. She said you're important. Said you're the only one who can finish what she started." Elias lowered the gun, but his mind raced. Lila's letter confirmed his suspicions. She was holding something back. But what? And why him? He was just a gunman, good with a revolver and better at staying alive. He wasn't a hero, wasn't a leader. Yet here was this kid looking at him like he was both. "You're coming with me," Elias said finally. "But you try anything, Tommy, and you'll wish you stayed in Valentine." The boy nodded, relief flickering across his face. "Fair enough, mister. I ain't looking to die." The journey to Coulter was brutal, the Grizzlies' icy winds cutting through Elias's coat like a knife. Tommy proved tougher than he looked, keeping pace on a scrawny mule he'd named Buck. The kid talked too much, stories of running scams in St. Denis, dodging lawmen, dreaming of a big score that had set him up for life. Elias listened, half amused, half annoyed. Tommy reminded him of himself at that age, all bravado and no sense. They stopped at a trapper's cabin one night, trading a few dollars for a hot meal and a roof. The trapper, a grizzled old man named Jed, eyed them warily but didn't ask questions. Over a plate of venison stew, Tommy leaned close to Elias, his voice low. "You think Lila's tellin' the truth? About the Pinkertons?" Elias chewed slowly, his eyes on the fire. "Don't know. She's playing a game, that's for sure. Question is, are we pawns or players?" Tommy frowned, picking at his stew. "She don't seem the type to lie. Not about her kid." "People lie about what matters most," Elias said. "Keeps it close to the chest." Jed, who'd been silent, grunted from his corner. "You talkin' about Lila Varn? Black-haired woman, scar on her brow?" Elias's hand stilled on his spoon. "You know her?" "Know of her," Jed said, spitting tobacco into a tin. "She passed through here, 'bout a year ago. Bought furs, paid in cash. Heard she was runnin' from Pinkertons. Heard she was one of them too. Hard to know what's true." Elias exchanged a glance with Tommy. "She say anything else?" he asked. Jed shrugged. "Said she was heading north. Looking for someone. A girl maybe. Didn't say more." Elias's gut twisted. Sarah. Or another lie. He pushed his plate away, appetite gone. "Thanks for the meal," he said, standing. "We're moving on." Outside, the snow had started, fat flakes drifting down. Tommy shivered, pulling his coat tight. "You believe him? About Lila?" "Don't believe anyone," Elias said, mounting Sadie. "But we're going to Coulter. I want answers." Coulter was a ghost town, even more desolate than Tumbleweed. Abandoned cabins sagged under the weight of snow, their windows dark and empty. The old church stood at the edge of town, its steeple leaning like a drunkard. Elias and Tommy approached cautiously, their breath fogging in the air. Sadie's hooves crunched the snow, the only sound in the stillness. Elias dismounted, revolver drawn. "Stay here," he told Tommy. "Keep watch." The boy nodded, gripping a rusty pistol he pulled from his saddlebag. Elias pushed open the church door, the hinges screaming. Inside, the air was cold and stale, the pews covered in dust. Lila stood at the altar, her back to him, her black coat blending with the shadows. "You came," she said, turning. Her face was pale, her eyes tired but sharp. "I wasn't sure you would." "Almost didn't," Elias said, keeping his gun raised. "Start talking, Lila. No more games." She stepped closer, hands empty. "No games. The Pinkertons are hunting you because of me. That payroll wasn't just money, it was payment for a list. Names of their agents, their informants, their plans. I've been stealing it piece by piece for years. They know someone's leaking. They think it's you." Elias's blood ran cold. "Why me?" "Because I used your name," she said. "When I sent the first letter to their enemies, I signed it Elias Kane. Figured your reputation would make it believable. You're a ghost, Kane. No one knows where you'll be next. Perfect cover." Anger surged through him, hot and sharp. "You used me as bait?" "I used you to save lives," she said, her voice fierce. "That list can bring them down. Not just the Pinkertons, the whole damn system." The men who took my Sarah, who ruined lives like yours and mine. I needed someone they'd chase, someone they couldn't catch. Elias's finger tightened on the trigger. He wanted to shoot her to end this betrayal right here. But her eyes held him, pleading not for her life but for something bigger. And Sarah? He asked. Was that real? Lila's face crumpled just for a moment. She was real. She's gone. But I'm not fighting for her anymore. I'm fighting for every kid like her, every family torn apart. You can walk away, Elias. Take the money, run. Or you can help me finish this. Before he could answer, a shot rang out from outside. Tommy's voice screamed, Elias. They're here. Elias spun, rushing to the door. Through the snow, he saw them. 6 riders, their coats marked with Pinkerton badges, closing in fast. Tommy fired wildly, his pistol flashing in the dark. Elias grabbed Lila, pulling her behind a pew. You set us up again? He growled. No, she said, drawing a derringer from her coat. They must have followed you. Gunfire erupted, bullets splintering the church's walls. Elias returned fire, dropping 1 rider. Tommy dove behind a snowbank, still shooting. Lila fired her derringer, her aim steady despite the chaos. But they were outnumbered and the Pinkertons were closing in. Elias's mind raced. The money was still in his saddlebag, the list somewhere in Lila's possession. If they died here, it was all for nothing. We need to move, he said, grabbing her arm. Back door? She nodded, pointing to a side exit. They ran, Elias covering their retreat with a hail of bullets. Tommy followed, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. They burst into the snow, the cold biting their skin. Sadie and Buck were tethered nearby, but the Pinkertons were already circling, cutting off their escape. Elias. Lila shouted, tossing him a small leather pouch. The list. Get it out of here. He caught it, the weight light but heavier than the gold in his bag. What about you? I'll hold them off, she said, her voice steady. Go. Elias hesitated, then grabbed Tommy and ran for the horses. The kid was shaking, but he climbed onto Buck. Elias swung into Sadie's saddle, the pouch tucked inside his coat. As they rode into the storm, he heard Lila's derringer fire, then silence. He didn't look back. The snow fell thicker now, a white curtain blotting out the world. Elias and Tommy rode hard, their horses struggling through the drifts. The pouch burned against Elias's chest, a secret that could change everything, or end it. He didn't know what was on that list, but if Lila was telling the truth, it was worth more than any payroll. They found shelter in a cave, the wind howling outside. Tommy shivered, his face pale, blood crusted on his forehead. She's dead, ain't she? He asked, his voice small. Elias stared into the dark, the pouch heavy in his hand. Probably, he said. She knew what she was doing. Tommy's eyes glistened. She saved us. Why? Because she believed in something, Elias said. More than money. More than herself. He opened the pouch, pulling out a folded sheet of paper. Names, dates, locations, dozens of them written in Lila's precise hand. Pinkerton agents, informants, politicians, all tied to a web of corruption that stretched from Blackwater to St. Denis. Elias's breath caught. This wasn't just a list, it was a weapon. What do we do with it? Tommy asked. Elias didn't answer right away. He could burn it, walk away, live out his days with the payroll money. Or he could finish what Lila started. Expose the truth, bring down the men who'd ruined her life and countless others. But the Pinkertons would never stop hunting him. He'd be a marked man more than he already was. He looked at Tommy, the kid's face lit by the faint glow of their fire. He saw himself in those eyes, scared, angry, searching for a way out. We find someone who can use this, Elias said finally. Someone who ain't afraid to fight. Tommy nodded, a spark of resolve in his eyes. Like Lila? Yeah, Elias said, tucking the list back into the pouch. Like Lila. They rode out at dawn, the snow easing but the cold still biting. Elias didn't know where they were going, not yet. But he knew the West wasn't done with him. Not by a long shot. The trail stretched ahead, and for the first time in years he felt something stir inside him. Not hope, not quite. But purpose.